Hello everyone, this is Lauren with Bold Notion Quilting, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes and just do a piggyback video on the live video that we just did, showing you how to use your couching foot. So in the live video that we did, we talked about the proper materials. So we've got our yarn, we've got our couching foot, and if you notice, this foot has the, it goes from the big hopping foot, normal size, to the outside, and tapers down into a funneled hole. Now you can get those in varying sizes for varying thicknesses of yarn, and then the yarn that I buy, I just make sure that it's machine washable and dryable, because if it's a quilt you'll be using, that's important. If it's not a quilt you'll be using, then that doesn't matter. So first things first, when you get started, you want to get your needle down once into your quilt top, and then use your bobbin, your top thread, kind of like a hook, to pull it out. So now you've pulled that bobbin thread to the top, so you don't have to worry about any loose threads on the back messing you up. So once that's done, you want to keep that top thread underneath your hopping foot and get your needle back to where you started. Then you want to take your yarn, okay, bring it around, and you want to hold it kind of loosely around your foot, just so that it's kind of in place, but at the same time it's got to be under your needle enough so that when you put your first needle down, it goes right through it. Now if you notice, I don't know if you can see this here, it went over two threads and not the other one. So what I'm going to do is pull that a little bit tighter, let it get through that last thread, otherwise it may not pull the full thickness of my yarn through. As you know, the yarn is kind of woven, so it gives you multiple strands, so if you don't get all those strands tacked down, then they don't all come through your foot, and then it's all a big nightmare. So you see, as I pull out this top thread, it pulls that yarn through. So I do that just enough to where I can get my yarn out, and your yarn should be able to fit folded in half through. If it cannot fit like that, then it is too fat for the foot that you're using. So we're going to go ahead and get this started here, and what I'm going to do is orient this a different way, and you'll see why in a moment, because I want to make sure that I'm getting all of those loose threads tacked. I'm going to get my thread nice and tight again. Okay. Then you can just begin stitching. Now if you notice, when you first pull off, it doesn't quite touch the area that you thought that it was going to touch. Okay, and that's what's important. And you're probably wondering, hey, it's not that tacked off right now, but just wait till I come back around to it. It'll all kind of make sense to you in a minute. Just gonna cut all the extra that I definitely don't need off of there and just leave this little tail. And you notice that my thread is also contrasting, but you can't even see it, so I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'm just following that line of my hat, so a good rule of thumb is to have lots of extra yarn. I like to have my yarn kind of down by me, but the way it's coming out of the foot, it may not matter. I don't want to create too much resistance, but I like being able to see kind of the thread path of my yarn to make sure that it doesn't get all tangled up. So you want to go at a decent speed. And I just want to make sure my yarn doesn't get too tight. Now that yarn, yep, it did not tack down. So it didn't tack down because it's pulling too tightly behind my machine. So we're just going to move that all. And I noticed it didn't tack down because it wasn't flat anymore, it was round. So I'm just moving that all to the front now so that it's going to pull appropriately. So see, I like it coming out like this. So when I come back around, I'll tack that sucker down. And now it's flat again. So I'm at the tip of my hat. And while I'm here, I'm going to take care of all of my embellishments. Sorry about the phone. 1 second, guys. This is getting tangled in my microphone. Don't want too many things happening at once. All right. So I'm going to take care of all of my embellishments while I'm here. Remember, you want to go over what you previously stitched. Otherwise, it's not going to fill in properly. I'm doing my outmost line first. Okay. The cool thing about this jack is that he actually doesn't have to be all filled in, because he's kind of made to look a little bit like a sketch, was kind of my hope. But we want to get all that subtle shading and whatnot in his hat. It can be hard to get sharp points, I've noticed. So you kind of just gotta touch them a little bit more. But be careful, because you could get that yarn kind of bunched up. And what happens when that yarn gets bunched up is that it basically creates this big fat stuck wad in there, and you're gonna have to find some way to lift your needle and your press foot enough to cut it from the bottom and then kind of dig it out through that hole. So try to make sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing as you're doing it, otherwise it could end badly. Alright, so now I have to decide, do I want to go back around my quilt to get back over here and do all this shading, or do I just want to tack off and try again? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack off. So you just have to do a couple stitches forward and back, right, like you normally would. Pull that needle up. Okay, we've got our yarn, and what we're going to do so that that yarn doesn't tack through, I'm pulling this really tight. I don't want to have to feed my yarn back through again. Down and back up to get that bobbin thread, just like you normally would. That might be a little bit confusing. I really hope that it's not. But that's how I would clip my threads off the back, so that everything is tacked down properly. And I don't have to worry about any threads coming unraveled. And then you just cut it off and it's all in there. So that way I don't have to feed my yarn through again, because I don't love doing that. It's not really my friend sometimes. But so now we're just going to get started tacking again. So you can pull your yarn tightly if it's already fed through, just to get that bobbin thread up. So we use that top thread, it kind of hooks that bobbin thread, and then we pull it out. Okay, then you get back to where you started. I like to do a couple of stitches for good measure. And then what I'm going to do is, before I even continue, I'm going to cut off that extra. Okay. And I'm just going to sew right over it, encasing it in. So the first time I made Jack, and this is where I didn't tack down my thread, so I'm just gonna sew right over that yarn, which is fine. So this was giving kind of a tapered look. Then I'm gonna create my area. My yarn ball's getting in the way here. I'm gonna move it to the other side. And you can see my yarn is getting low, so I'm just gonna give myself some extra. You always wanna have lots of extra slack. And then keep going on the outline. So like I was saying, the first time I did this, I was trying to film him, and in doing so, there was just so much thread. Oh my gosh. I was just trying something new, trying to do some thread painting. He turned out like this really stiff, thick embroidery. I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. So there we go. And now I'm just going to cover up that yarn tail from last time, and he is locked in there, and he is not coming out. So it just was not fun for you guys to watch, so I just tossed those videos out. I know I promised you guys those videos, but I promise you, it was awful to watch. You would get dizzy watching me go back and forth, trying to make this black fabric white with just regular old 40-weight thread. Okay, so you notice my lines are kind of crossing here, so just be aware of your materials. And I'm just going to finish them up. Okay, and it's starting to get a little tight. Okay, and then we're done. So that is Jack's hat, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna take this white out because I don't need it, and I'm gonna show you how I pulled that bobbin thread up. So I hope that you can see it okay through the yarn. All right, so we're gonna get rid of the yarn, we're done. This is a long video, guys, I'm sorry. I try to keep them very short, but I hope it's informative. Now I've got my top thread. I've moved my machine back. If you're doing this on any kind of sit-down machine, just move your quilt sandwich. All these rules still apply. And I can see where my thread is in there. You want to try to get as close to the same hole as possible, because all you really want to do is pull up that bobbin thread. So what's happening now is my thread on the back is still attached to the back of my quilt. So I'm just pulling this up, and you notice this is my top thread at the top, right? And then this loop right here is my bobbin. On one side, I can pull as hard as I want and nothing comes. So I can pull as hard as I want, nothing moves. This side I can pull and it moves. So the side that doesn't move is attached to my quilt back. So I want to clip that, and I also want to clip this top thread, okay? And then what you're left with is a detached top thread and a detached bobbin, and no threads to clip on the back of your quilt. So you can, if I pull on it underneath here, you can see if I were to move my machine, that bobbin thread would just come right back out. So that's a good way to start and stop. So this is his hat getting started. All I have left is his poof, which I actually have kind of like a white applique, a fabric to raw edge applique with the yarn on there when I'm couching. And then do some shading and some swirls around him, and then I'll post some photos of the completed piece. Miss Pat is so lucky. Hers is so much better than mine. I'm super jealous, but I will try not to be. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share this video and the page if you want more updates on different tutorials. I know I don't have a lot of them coming out right now, but I will have more late summer after we are all settled in and moved. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and happy quilting. If you do any projects with the couching, please feel free to share them to my page. I love to see what you guys are up to. Take care. Happy quilting. Bye-bye.